Welcome back to our channel.
Let's improve your fluency together, one real conversation at a time. Hey, welcome back! I'm so glad you're here today, whether you're sitting at your desk, driving somewhere, cooking dinner, or maybe just lying on your couch doing absolutely nothing. No judgment. We've all been there.
We really have. And honestly, lying on the couch doing nothing sometimes feels like the most productive thing in the world. Just resting.
Right? And today's topic is actually connected to that. We're talking about positivity, the power of positivity. And before you roll your eyes and say, oh, great, another feel-good topic, just wait, because this conversation might surprise you.
Yeah. I think a lot of people hear the word positivity and immediately think of those really cheesy motivational posters. The ones that say things like, believe in yourself and anything is possible, with a photo of a sunrise behind it. Oh, those posters. Every school has them, every office break room has them, and nobody actually reads them. Nobody! They become invisible after 2 days. They're just furniture at that point. Exactly. But what we're talking about today is something much deeper, much more real, and honestly, much more useful. We're talking about what positivity actually means in daily life, how it affects your mind, your relationships, your health, your decisions, and most importantly, how you can actually build it, even if you're not a naturally optimistic person. And I think that's the key thing, right? Some people are just naturally more positive than others. That's just personality. But does that mean the rest of us are stuck? Absolutely not. And that's what we're going to explore today. So stay with us. This is going to be a really good one. Let's go. So, Michael, let's start from the beginning. What do you actually mean when you say the power of positivity? What does that phrase mean to you? Great question. And I want to be really honest here because I think a lot of people misunderstand positivity. They think it means being happy all the time, smiling constantly, pretending everything is fine, even when it's not. Yes, toxic positivity. That's a real thing. Exactly. Toxic positivity. That's actually a phrase people use now. And it means forcing yourself or others to stay positive, even in situations where it's completely unrealistic. Like if someone loses their job and you say, don't worry, everything happens for a reason. That's not helpful. That's dismissive. Right? It's like you're ignoring the real emotion. You're basically saying, your feelings don't matter. Just smile. And that's not positivity. That's avoidance. Real positivity is something much more grounded. It's about having a general orientation, a direction toward hope, growth, and solutions, even when life is difficult.
I love that word, orientation, like a compass. You're not pretending there are no obstacles, you're just choosing which direction to face.
Exactly. You still acknowledge the problem, you still feel the emotion, but you don't live there. You don't set up camp in the middle of the problem and never leave.
Set up camp.
I love that expression. Like you're just pitching a tent in your misery. Right. Some people genuinely do that. They find a problem, they move in, they decorate the walls, they make it their permanent home.
Okay, that's a little too relatable.
I've definitely done that before. We all have.
Okay, so I know positivity feels good, but is there actual science behind it? Are there real benefits? Not just emotional ones, but physical ones too?
Oh, absolutely. And this is the part that genuinely surprised me when I first learned about it. Positive thinking, and I mean consistent, habitual positive thinking, has been linked to lower levels of stress hormones. Things like cortisol. You know that chemical your body releases when you're under pressure?
Yeah, cortisol, the stress hormone. I feel like I'm running on pure cortisol most of the time.
You and literally everyone else. But here's the thing. When you're chronically stressed, when your cortisol levels stay high over a long period of time, it actually starts to damage your body. Your immune system weakens, your sleep suffers, your digestion is affected, even your heart health is impacted. even your heart health is impacted.
Wow, so stress is literally making us sick.
In many cases, yes. And here's where positivity comes in. Studies have shown that people who have a more positive outlook tend to have better immune responses. They recover from illness faster, they sleep better, they even live longer on average.
Okay, now I'm taking notes. Tell me more.
There's also something called the broaden and build theory. It was developed by a psychologist named Barbara Fredrickson. And the basic idea is this. When you experience positive emotions, your mind opens up. It broadens. You think more creatively, you see more options, you're more flexible in your thinking.
So positive emotions literally expand your mind?
Yes.
And negative emotions do the opposite. When you're scared, angry, or stressed, your mind narrows. It focuses on the immediate threat, which makes sense from an evolutionary point of view. If a lion is chasing you, you don't need to think creatively. You need to run. Yes, no time for creativity when there's a lion. But the problem is our brains sometimes treat an angry email from a boss the same way they treat a lion. Same stress response, same narrow thinking. And that's why positivity matters so much in modern life. Because we're not being chased by lions anymore, but our brains still think we are. Exactly. So training yourself to be more positive is actually rewiring your brain to respond more calmly and creatively to everyday stress.
Okay, let's get personal. Do you have a moment in your own life where you really felt the difference between a positive and a negative mindset?
Oh yeah, definitely. So a few years ago, I went through a really rough patch, a difficult period in my life. I had lost a job I really cared about, and my first reaction was just complete negativity. I kept thinking, this is terrible. Everything is falling apart. I'll never find something this good again. I was catastrophizing. Catastrophizing. Great word for our listeners. That means assuming the worst case scenario, making everything seem like a disaster.
Exactly. And I stayed in that headspace for weeks. I wasn't sleeping well. I was irritable with the people around me. I wasn't applying for new jobs because I'd already convinced myself it was pointless.
So the negative thinking was actually holding you back. It wasn't just an emotion, it was affecting your actions.
Completely. And then I remember this clearly. A friend of mine sat me down and said, okay, what did you learn from that job? What skills did you build? What would you do differently? And that shift in questions completely changed my perspective. Just the questions changed everything? The questions changed everything. Because instead of asking, why did this happen to me, which is a victim mindset, I started asking, what can I do with this? And that's a growth mindset. That's positivity in action. That's powerful. I've had a similar experience, actually. A few years back, I was going through a really stressful time with a personal relationship, and I was so focused on everything that was wrong, everything that wasn't working. And I was seeing a therapist at the time, she asked me to write down 3 things that were good every single day, even tiny things. Gratitude journaling. Yes. And I thought it was going to be cheesy and useless. But after about 2 weeks, something shifted. I started noticing more good things. Not because more good things were happening, but because I was looking for them. And that changed my whole mood. That's such a perfect example. You are training your attention. And attention is everything. What you focus on grows. What you focus on grows. Write that one down, everyone. So let's talk about habits. What do genuinely positive people actually do differently? Because I think sometimes people assume that positive people just got lucky. They had a great childhood or great circumstances or no real problems. Right? Like, oh, it's easy for them to be positive. They've never struggled. And that's just not true. Some of the most positive people I know have been through incredibly difficult experiences, but they've developed habits, daily habits, that help them maintain that positive orientation.
Okay, let's go through some of them. What's the first one?
The first one is, and this might sound simple, but it's incredibly powerful, reframing. Reframing means changing the way you interpret a situation. Not lying to yourself, but genuinely looking for a different angle.
Like finding the silver lining. Exactly, the silver lining, another great expression. So, for example, you miss a flight. The negative reaction is, this is a disaster, my whole trip is ruined. The reframe is, okay, I have 2 hours I didn't plan for. I can catch up on messages, I can get a good meal, I can read. Same situation, different story.
And the story you tell yourself matters so much. I really believe that.
The second habit is surrounding yourself with positive energy. And I don't just mean positive people, though that matters too. I mean consuming positive content, being mindful of how much negativity you're absorbing from the news, from social media, from certain conversations.
This is so real. I went through a period where I was constantly reading bad news and I felt terrible, anxious all the time, like the world was ending. Because when you're constantly feeding your brain negative information, it starts to believe that's the full picture. It's called the negativity bias. Our brains naturally pay more attention to negative things. It was a survival mechanism. But in the age of social media and 24-hour news cycles, it can really work against us.
So it's not about ignoring the world. It's about being intentional with what you consume.
Exactly. You can stay informed without being overwhelmed. There's a balance. Set boundaries on your news consumption. Limit your doom scrolling. Doom scrolling. Yes, that's when you just keep scrolling through bad news endlessly, right? Even though it makes you feel worse with every scroll. And you know it's making you feel worse, but you can't stop. It's almost like a compulsion. I am guilty of this. Completely guilty.
That's exactly the test. Would you say that to a friend? You're such an idiot. You always mess everything up. Why can't you get it together? No, you'd never say that to someone you care about. But we say it to ourselves without even thinking. Constantly. So one of the most powerful shifts you can make is becoming aware of your inner dialogue and gently correcting it. Not lying to yourself, but speaking with the same compassion you'd show a good friend. That's something I've been actively working on, and it genuinely makes a difference. Let's talk about positivity in relationships, because I think this is an area people don't always think about when they hear the word positivity. Yes, I want to talk about this because I think positivity in a relationship isn't just about being cheerful with your partner or your friends. It's much deeper than that. It really is. There's actually a researcher, John Gottman, who has spent decades studying couples. And one of his most famous findings is something called the magic ratio. And the idea is that for a relationship to thrive, to be healthy and happy, there need to be roughly 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction. 5 to 1. That's a big gap. It really is. And it sounds like a lot, but when you think about it, a positive interaction doesn't have to be something huge. It can be a smile, a compliment, laughing together, showing genuine interest in what someone is saying. So it's all the small moments that add up. Exactly. It's not about one grand romantic gesture. It's about consistently showing up with warmth, attention, and care. And that ratio, 5 positives to 1 negative, it applies to friendships, to family relationships, even to work relationships. So positivity literally builds relationships. It's like the glue. That's a beautiful way to put it. And here's the flip side. When negativity consistently outweighs positivity in a relationship, it erodes trust. It creates distance. Even if nothing dramatic happens, no big fights, no betrayals, the relationship slowly fades. That's actually a little scary to think about, because sometimes you don't even notice it happening.
Right? It's not always a dramatic breakdown. Sometimes it's just a slow drift. And that's why being intentional about the positive moments in your relationships matters so much.
I think about this with friendships too. I have some friends who, after spending time with them, I feel energized. And I have others where I feel completely drained.
Energy vampires.
Energy vampires. That's the expression. They don't do it on purpose necessarily, but they just take more than they give.
And being around chronically negative people, people who constantly complain, always see the worst in every situation, never acknowledge anything good, it genuinely affects your own mindset. You absorb their energy whether you want to or not.
So being selective about who you spend time with isn't being snobby. It's being protective of your mental and emotional health.
Exactly. It's not about cutting people off without compassion, but you can choose how much time and energy you give to different relationships.
Okay, this is something I've been thinking about, and it connects really nicely to English learning. The language of positivity. Because I think the words we use actually shape our mindset.
Oh, this is such a good point. Language and mindset are deeply connected. Like if you constantly say, I have to go to work, versus I get to go to work, those two phrases create completely different feelings.
Right? I have to feels like a burden. I get to feels like a privilege. And the situation is the same. You're going to work either way, but the story changes depending on the words. Another one I love is instead of saying, I can't do this, saying, I can't do this yet. That one little word, yet, completely changes the meaning. It goes from a dead end to an open door.
The word yet is so powerful. Carol Dweck, the psychologist who developed the concept of growth mindset, she talks about this a lot. That one word shifts you from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset.
For our listeners, a fixed mindset is the belief that your abilities and intelligence are fixed. You're either good at something or you're not, and nothing will change that. A growth mindset is the belief that you can improve, grow, and learn through effort and practice.
And guess which mindset leads to better outcomes in almost every area of life? The growth mindset, obviously.
Every time. And positivity and growth mindset go hand in hand. They feed each other. Let's give our listeners some more positive language swaps they can use in real life, like phrases to replace more negative ones. Great idea. Okay, instead of this is a problem, try this is a challenge. A challenge implies it's solvable. A problem implies it's just bad. Instead of I failed, try I learned what doesn't work. Because failure is just feedback if you look at it the right way. Instead of I'm so stressed, try I'm feeling a lot of pressure right now and I'm figuring out how to manage it. It sounds small, but it keeps you in the driver's seat. You're not just a victim of stress. You're actively managing it. Instead of I don't know anything, and I hear this from English learners a lot, by the way, try I'm still learning and I'm making real progress. Because that's the truth. If you're watching this video, you are making progress.
That's so important. A lot of English learners are incredibly hard on themselves. They focus entirely on what they don't know yet, and they forget to celebrate what they do know, what they have achieved.
And that negativity toward their own progress can actually slow down their learning. Because when you feel like a failure, you want to give up. But when you feel like you're growing, even slowly, you want to keep going.
Momentum. Positive feelings create momentum. And momentum is everything when you're learning something difficult. Okay, let's bust some myths, because I think there are some really common misconceptions about what it means to be a positive person.
Let's do it. Myth number 1. Positive people never feel sad, angry, or frustrated.
Completely false. Positive people feel all of those things. The difference is they don't stay there indefinitely. They allow themselves to feel the emotion, process it, and then move forward.
It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about not being controlled by them.
Myth number 2. Positive people are naive. they don't see reality clearly.
Also false. In fact, research suggests that genuinely positive people often have a very clear view of reality. They're not delusional. They just choose to focus on what's possible rather than what's impossible. There's a difference between optimism and delusion.
Right? An optimist sees a difficult situation and says, "This is hard, and I believe I can get through it." A delusional person says, "Everything is fine," when the house is literally on fire.
Yes, don't be the person who ignores the fire.
Myth number 3. Positive people are just born that way. It's just their personality.
And this is probably the most damaging myth because it takes away your sense of agency. It makes you think, well, I'm just a negative person. Nothing I can do about it.
But that's not true at all. Research in neuroscience has shown that our brains are neuroplastic, meaning they can change, adapt, and rewire. The brain you have today is not the brain you're stuck with forever.
And the habits we talked about earlier, reframing, mindful consumption, positive self-talk, gratitude, all of these literally change the structure and patterns of your brain over time. It takes consistency, but it works. So positivity is a skill, like any other skill. You can practice it, develop it, and get better at it.
Exactly. You can learn positivity. You can build it just like you're building your English right now. Okay, let's give our listeners some really practical, actionable tips. Things they can start doing today, even small things, to build a more positive mindset. Love it. Tip number 1, start your morning intentionally. The first 30 minutes of your day set the tone for everything that follows. So instead of immediately picking up your phone and scrolling through social media or checking emails, take a few minutes to do something positive. It could be stretching. It could be making a cup of coffee and sitting in silence. It could be reading something inspiring. Even just 5 minutes. The way you start your morning really does matter. I've noticed a huge difference on days when I have a calm, intentional morning versus days when I wake up, immediately check my phone, and feel overwhelmed before I've even eaten breakfast. Tip number 2, practice gratitude. And I know this sounds cliche. We hear it all the time, but the research is genuinely solid on this. People who regularly practice gratitude, even just writing down 3 things they're grateful for each day, report higher levels of well-being, better sleep, and lower levels of anxiety and depression. And it doesn't have to be big things. It can be, I'm grateful for the good coffee I had this morning. I'm grateful that my commute was quick today. I'm grateful that my friend texted me and made me laugh. The small things, because the small things are actually most of your life. We're waiting for the big moments, the promotions, the holidays, the big achievements, but life is mostly made of small moments. And if you can find gratitude in those, that's a game changer. Tip number 3, use your language intentionally. Like we discussed earlier, pay attention to how you talk to yourself and to others. Notice when you're using language that's disempowering. Words like always, never, I can't, I'm terrible at this. And gently replace them with more empowering language.
It doesn't have to be fake or over-the-top positive. Just more honest and more open. More hopeful.
Exactly. And tip 5, connect with people. Real connection. Not just scrolling through someone's Instagram. Actually talking to a friend. Having a real conversation. Laughing together. Sharing what you're going through. Human connection is one of the most powerful mood lifters there is.
And ironically, when we're feeling most negative, we tend to isolate ourselves. We pull back, which just makes everything worse.
It's a vicious cycle. You feel low, so you withdraw. You withdraw, so you feel more low. Breaking that cycle often starts with reaching out, even when it feels hard.
Okay, let's do a quick vocabulary tour of some of the great expressions we've used today, because I know our listeners love these moments.
Great idea. Let's go. First one, catastrophizing.
That means assuming the worst possible outcome, blowing things out of proportion. I failed one test. I'm going to fail my whole life. That's catastrophizing.
Doom scrolling. Endlessly scrolling through bad news or negative content online, even though it makes you feel worse.
Reframing. Consciously choosing to look at a situation from a different, more positive or constructive angle. Finding a new perspective.
Broaden and build theory. That positive emotions expand our thinking and help us build long-term resources.
Growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Growth mindset, you believe you can improve with effort. Fixed mindset, you believe your abilities are set in stone. Silver lining, the positive aspect of a difficult or negative situation. Every cloud has a silver lining. It's a really common English idiom. Energy vampires, people who drain your emotional energy. They take more than they give. Neuroplastic, the brain's ability to change and adapt throughout life. It means you're never too old to rewire your thinking. And my favorite from today, setting up camp in your misery. Not a technical term, but a very real phenomenon. Don't do it. Don't pitch a tent in your problems. We've said it once, we'll say it again. Okay, before we wrap up, and we've covered so much today, I want to ask you something, Sarah. If you could give our listeners just one piece of advice about positivity, one thing to start doing today, what would it be? Just one? That's hard. Okay, I would say talk to yourself like you talk to someone you love. Because I genuinely believe that self-compassion is the foundation of everything else. You can't build a positive life if you're constantly tearing yourself down internally. So start there. Be kind to yourself. Speak to yourself gently. That's where it begins.
That's beautiful. I really agree. For me, it would be look for what's working, not just what isn't. We're so trained to spot problems, our brains are literally wired for it. So consciously counterbalancing that, making a habit of noticing what's going right, what you've done well, what's good in your life, that small shift can genuinely change everything. Both of those are so good and they're not complicated. They're simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. Simple doesn't mean easy. You've got to practice it every day, like a muscle, like your English.
Like your English. That's the perfect comparison. Consistency over perfection. You don't have to be perfectly positive every single day. You just have to keep coming back to it. Keep practicing. Keep choosing it, even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days. So that's our conversation today on the power of positivity. We really hope it gave you something to think about and something to do, not just for your mindset, but for your English too, because you've been listening to natural, real English this whole time, and that is absolutely worth celebrating. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you in the next one. See you soon. Bye for now. Simple doesn't mean easy. You've got to practice it every day, like a muscle, like your English.